Let's talk about China's Belt and Road Initiative. The BRI is a gigantic plan for a global network of ports, roads, railways, and other infrastructure to connect China to the world.
我们的共同目标是携手努力让各国互联互通更加有效。
The most expensive infrastructure project in history.
The Belt and Road Initiative, a boom, a bust, or just a buzzword?
It is also a way through which China confirms its role as a global power.
The US and other Western countries are worried and recently announced their own plan.
We think that there's a much more equitable way to provide for the needs of countries around the world.
So what exactly is the BRI? What's in it for China? And why do some countries see a big economic opportunity while others see a threat? Think of the BRI as both a massive trade network and a political vision. It started with a speech that President Xi Jinping made back in Kazakhstan in 2013. He talked about building a new trade route based on the old Silk Road, an ancient network that linked Asia, the Middle East, and Europe for almost 2,000 years.
It started out in 2013 as an idea to invest in infrastructure from China through Central Asia to Europe and Africa. But over the years, it has become something much larger.
It's an absolutely colossal project, which is scheduled to involve 60% of the world population.
The Belt and Road Initiative basically weaves together lots of projects. It could be China building things from scratch, upgrading existing infrastructure, handing out loans, or making investments. There are overland routes that connect China to Central and South Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. That's the Belt. It includes what's called the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, where around $60 billion are being spent on things like coal and hydro power plants, wind farms, highways, and a new high-speed rail link between Peshawar and Karachi. Then there's the road part, which is slightly confusing because it actually refers to a maritime Silk Road, sea routes that connect China to Southeast Asia, Africa, and Europe. It includes major investments in ports across the world, places like Sri Lanka, Dubai, Djibouti, Greece, and Spain, even as far as Peru.
There are a lot of different initiatives, and the Belt and Road has become more of a label to capture a lot of what is going on.
Now, we listed some of the big examples, but BRI specifics are hard to come by. There's actually no confirmed list of everything and everyone involved, but it's estimated to include 2,600 projects in more than 100 countries. And that makes it hard to come up with an accurate price tag.
It is predicted that China's overall expenses over the duration of the initiative could reach $1.2 to $1.3 trillion by 2027.
So what's the end game here? Well, for China, the BRI is obviously about trade.
China imports a tremendous amount of raw materials, and they export a tremendous amount of value-added goods. In order to do that, they need access to these various resource countries and also markets.
But all this global interconnectedness and the huge amount of money involved means the Belt and Road Initiative is also political.
So what China's trying to do partly is to create a sort of web of interdependence. So it's telling other countries, look, you lack roads, you lack bridges, you lack railways, you lack power stations, a power grid. What we can do is come in, lend lots of money, and our companies can come in and build this for you, okay? But once countries become economically dependent on China, clearly there is then a geopolitical impact too.
By building all this stuff, China is also exporting its version of economic development. Now, the way the West has usually done it is to provide economic support, but with conditions attached, like certain democratic reforms. China's style is different.
They're not like the IMF or the World Bank, where they come in, assess the country, and say, look, this is what you need to do, A, B, C, D. Then we'll give you the money. China comes in and said, look, we'd like to support an infrastructure program that makes sense. What infrastructure needs do you have?
The World Bank reckons that China's BRI projects could lift more than 7 million people out of extreme poverty, and that transport projects could boost global trade by up to 6.2%. And of course, there are lots of countries eager to take China's money. Djibouti is one example. Its BRI projects include a major port, a new railway line to the Ethiopian capital, and a gas pipeline. China's put up around $14 billion in investments in loans for Djibouti between 2012 and 2020. But there are risks, like corruption, especially because there's so much secrecy surrounding most of these BRI deals.
Unfortunately, a lot of these countries, it becomes a political situation where people are putting projects where it best suits them politically. Surprise, surprise, if you look down the list of projects and who is in power, you'll find that almost always there's a connection.
So it's politicians making these deals. And there are plenty of examples of ordinary people losing out.
හම්බන්තොට ඉපදිච්ච මිනිස්සුන්ගේ භූමිය සම්පූර්ණයෙන් අහිමි කරන වැඩපිළිවෙලක් මේ යන්නේ.
Another thing to remember is that with all the talk of Chinese money funding these projects, it's often more accurate to say that it's actually Chinese loans. And that creates another risk, that some countries could be taking on too much debt. Remember Djibouti? It's facing what the World Bank calls debt distress. Its debt to China amounts to 70% of its GDP. And look at Sri Lanka. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa borrowed billions to develop a massive new port. When Sri Lanka struggled to pay back the money, it ended up with a new deal that gave China control of the port for 99 years. That led to accusations that the loans compromised Sri Lanka's sovereignty, which China denies.
China's dominance here in Sri Lanka cannot be ignored. This, its latest project, Sri Lanka's largest single foreign direct investment. And now, China is back again, offering Sri Lanka more million-dollar loans.
But it's this kind of thing that's led to some people calling the Belt and Road Initiative a debt trap for vulnerable countries. Others disagree.
It is quite extreme to portray this as a trap. China is successful in appealing to willing counterparts.
And it seems this success has got Western powers, especially the United States, paying more attention. At the recent G7 summit, they set out their own plan, complete with its own snazzy abbreviation B3W, which stands for Build Back Better World. They're emphasizing things like transparency, good governance, the environment, and bringing in the private sector to help fund it all. But B3W is thin on details. There's no budget and no timetable.
I can't see anything that they've identified in this program which isn't already being done by the World Bank and the IMF and the ADB and the other investment banks that are out there.
The main focus of this is posed on values. However, practically, when talking about funds and like actual capability of building infrastructures, that's a whole other story. Ultimately, the participating powers will have to show they have the money and capability to pursue this initiative during COVID-19 crisis.
Now, one way to look at all this is that it's another area of competition between China and the West.
Will countries, particularly in the developing world, cast their lot in with China, with their autocratic approach to governing, or are they going to stay with the West, with democracy?
But maybe there's another way to look at it. If China and the West are competing, that could give more choice, more opportunity, and crucially, more money to developing countries that desperately need it.
The developing world has agency and can decide for itself how it wants to engage in terms of the development agenda.
The U.S. can say, well, we'll offer better terms, and we're nicer guys, and we're ideologically, preferable. But I don't know what that means, if you build a road. A road is a road. As long as the quality is correct and the price is right.
The Belt and Road Initiative is about China's position in the world. It's their strategy to outshine everyone on the international stage. But some countries really don't like the idea of the Chinese calling the shots. If you want to know more, there are lots of reports from Al Jazeera correspondents about Belt and Road projects from around the world. You can find those on YouTube or on our website. See you next week.